Welcome back to Realize Your Potential with Mike and Travis. We are here continuing our series on strategy and planning. We've taken you through the idea around miracle questions. We then went to a brainstorming, free association brainstorming session. And now we're moving into crafting the goal, right? We've got all this stuff on the board. We've kind of vomited on a whiteboard or something. How do we take that and make that into a goal, which then we can turn into a plan of attack? But before we start, Mike, hit them up. What do they need to do?
Like, share, subscribe, and what we also recently know that Travis is not a man about the snow.
We did learn that. We learned in our last episode that snow is not my favorite. It's not my favorite element. No. I don't. Water. It's really water in general, right? As you know, me and Mike have gone vacationing. Like, I don't swim. I don't want to go in the ocean. I don't want to. So it's like any form of water is just not my. It's not my bag. It's not my deal. You know. I know that lives up to some stereotypes about my skin tone, but hey, sometimes stereotypes come from real places. You know what I mean? So.
Well, for what it's worth, my pops, he didn't learn how to swim until he was in his 50s. So.
See, there we go. That's Hey, I'm neither here nor there, right?
Right.
So let's jump a little bit into this next step. So, talk to us about the importance of crafting a goal, and take us through the mechanics of what that looks like, Mike.
Yep. So what have we done so far? We got into a place of futuristic thinking. This is ultimately what it is that I'm trying to achieve. Down the road, what Travis landed on was he wants to make money being a snowboarding coach. And so we know that down the road, ultimately, that's what he wants to achieve. We then did a free association brainstorm here around, all right, so how are we going to set priorities? What are the things that we're thinking about? What's specific, measurable, attainable, relative, and time-bound? In terms of what down the road, what he wants to achieve, flushed it out. And now we're at a place of, let's just say in the next 2 weeks, what are actionable items that we can create goals around, and maybe even sub-goals or milestones, right? Mm-hmm. So the value of this is, how do we get you to a place to start to move into action to accomplish these things? In somewhat of a structured way, right? So if we're going back to the example of being a snowboard coach and making a gazillion dollars doing so.
Gazillion?
Mm-hmm. Travis, with everything that's...
Empire.
With everything up here, what would you say are maybe the top 2 priorities that we can focus on, let's say in the next 2 weeks or the next month? Or is there something up here something that's not up here that should be up here?
Yeah, I think the whole idea of being better at snowboarding than I am today is probably priority number 1, right? So I really need to increase my skill set in that regard.
Okay.
And I think maybe it's that, or maybe it's, how do I start a business where I can hire a couple of people who are really good at that, right? So like, maybe I don't know, but if that be the case, it'd probably be, how do I fundraise, or how do you use startup capital to get some experts on my team that I can start marketing and making some capital from them doing it. So either one of the two, right? And I got to figure out which is probably the best to do, is whether just for me to get better myself, or me to hire some folks who are really great at it and me kind of market their services.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you're in a place of trying to discover which type of business model you want to do, right? Whether it's going to be you yourself, where you're being the coach, or you're going to hire a few people that already have that skill set to then be able to employ, right?
Yeah, and I think long term, obviously, I plan to hire more people than just me, but you're definitely correct for the short term. which one is better.
So in the next month, what do you feel like we should focus on in regards to what we created here as a possible milestone?
I think the first step is understanding the benefits for each business model and what is then the cost associated with that. And I guess that would go into the benefits, right? The benefits and roadblocks, right, of either one of those paths. I think that'd probably be the first step.
So you want to understand the business model, and what was the other thing?
Yeah, I think that's the first step, right? Is the business model. What business model? What's the benefits and what's the hurdles that I have to jump over, and what can be the roadblocks in either direction?
So, understand the business model, understand the roadblocks and all the things that might get in the way. What would be something that you can make actionable in the next week in terms of achieving this goal, which is what you want to achieve in the next month, right? So what would be an action step or milestone in the next week to achieve?
I think the first action step is understanding, maybe sitting down with someone who is a professional in this and understanding how long it took them to get to a point where they felt comfortable taking clients. Because then I'll know if I have that kind of time to do that, right? Like I'll be able to understand that. And then I could probably ask that same person, maybe some exploratory questions of, hey, if someone was to book your services for you, like what would that look like? How much would you charge? And what percentages would you be interested with sharing if somebody was able to get you clients, right? So I could probably do research on both of those at the same time.
All right, so sitting down with a pro, right? And then and this would be within a week, right?
Yep.
Gotcha. And how would you know that you achieved that?
Well, I actually sat with them or didn't.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a easy sort of framework to sort of go through this process to really start to sort of hone down. So if you're just, don't look at all that. If you're just looking at this is how you make this stuff actionable, right? Is talking through the details and then really trying to get down what is reasonable, what is relative, and what is attainable in terms of what I need to do in the next week and be specific about it. Of course, with the time frame, right? What else here? Are we missing anything to maybe what we want to achieve in the next week? Because I think that is also going to determine your website, your budget, how you're going to get income, right?
Yeah, I think this is the first step. Yeah, I think I got to understand that, first.
So at this point, we would then, so we have something actionable in the next week. And that's just a process we would continue to go through with folks to sort of help them really try to set goals, milestones, and maybe sub-goals to move them in the direction of ultimately what they want to achieve. And it sounds like you want to be a snowboard coach 2.5 years down the road. So, and or just having that business thriving then, right? So, and this is a strategy to get folks to that place in terms of thinking about it and behaviors.
I love this, and it almost kind of bleeds into what the next video will really be about, right? It's kind of really, you can see how these steps kind of really blend into each other, of really building a plan with pivot points, right? And you're kind of starting that process, right? Because I would say this is more of exploratory work than a plan, but some people would say, hey, you're already started your plan, right? This is the first step to your plan. But I like these steps defined this way because I do feel like crafting your goal is important to setting up the plan, because the reality is my goal is still somewhat undefined, right? Which is, I know what my end goal is, but what is the path to get there, and how do we craft the goal around what is the next obtainable step? I still haven't done enough research to really understand what that is, right? Like, I don't know how I want to move my business forward. So I'm still in the prep stage of crafting my goal. Before we're going, okay, cool, got it. Here's your plan of attack. These are your pivot points. This is your check-in points. And that we'll talk about that a little bit more next week. Any other thoughts, Mike, before we kind of dive out of here about crafting a goal and why it's so important?
Yeah, I think that's a good call out of what you just said. So ideally, also what would happen is you spend time trying to understand what benchmark is going to work for you and how this sort of structure is going to work for you in terms of, because what we set was, all right, we have 1 week benchmark or milestone to be able to get some more information to help us better craft. But also the bigger goal to that is, within the next month, I'm going to understand specifically what model I want to choose, right? And so for Travis, that is sort of what is beginning to work for him, and that's what I would want to call out. And with that understanding, I would then want to create some sort of cadence to what that looks like in terms of what's most comfortable for him.
Yep.
So.
Absolutely. Yeah, fun times. Thank you so much for taking us through that, Mike. And the visuals, I think, were really exciting around that. And I hopefully, if you go back and watch this episode, you can kind of see how that process looks, not along with the way that it sounds. So, like, share, and subscribe. Keep watching, and we're going to conclude this kind of 4-step process next week with really developing the plan, and instituting pivot points. Talk to you guys next week.